spend my entire life doing economic forecasts with hundreds of slides, and today I thought I'd bring an old box and talk to you about it. Like Bruce this morning, I have heroes in the communication field. One of mine is Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson says that everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. And certainly as a country, we've been hit in the mouth recently. We worry about our competitiveness both as people and as places. And what I was going to do today is talk a little bit about the places and do so with a family history. And I'm probably the oddest guy in my family to talk about my family history because I'm the one who moved away. My whole family comes from rural North Carolina, Gaston County, about an hour south of here. And they've been there for multiple generations. I'm the only one that ever moved away. Now I moved all the way to Raleigh, so not too far away. But I want to see if there are any 127-year-old people in the audience today. Anybody feel that way on a Saturday morning? The story I'm going to tell today starts with my great-grandparents. And my great-grandparents were born 127 years ago, both of them. They were born in a little town called Alexis, North Carolina. They were born on a farm. That farm was the way they made their living. This is what people did back in the 1880s in North Carolina. They lived in subsistence farms. They raised their own crops, they grew their own animals, and they never worked in a public job. They never went out and worked for anybody else. They lived on that farm. Their story, and the story of my grandparents and my parents, me, my brother, and my children, are the story that we're going through in America today. It's the story of competitiveness with place. And you know, the saddest thing that's happened in my life, I'm 55 years old, I'm that generation that everybody talks about that the world changed on. Funny thing happened on our way to life. The world changed. And when we think about places like Hickory or anywhere USA, what we found is that if we're living in today's world, we think none of the rules apply anymore. They've changed on us. The economy changed. For my great-grandparents, the economy was a small farm. How do you feed yourself and your 12 children that they had? For my grandparents, it was how do you keep the farm going and work in the textile mills at night to make a living, to buy the tractor, the first one. For my parents, my dad had a career in baseball for a while, but then came home and worked for a manufacturer. My brother and I have those jobs that you sort of think are going to last your whole life, and then you end up changing 10 times. My children both want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to work for anybody because working for someone doesn't seem stable anymore. Used to be that 90% of Americans worked in agriculture. Not that long ago, 50% worked in manufacturing. Today, service industry. Maybe it's communication in the future, maybe it's information, who knows? But the economy changed. The competition changed. When you were on the farm, who were you competing with? You weren't competing with your neighbor to grow more corn. You were competing with the elements to try to make sure you could succeed. My grandparents, again, working for a textile mill, J.P. Stevens, they were competing against other textile mills in the South for cloth. My dad's company was competing to make roof choices and trusses against competition that started in the U.S. and moved overseas. Competition shift, who we compete against. We compete against each other now to have the best talent. The talent bar itself changed. My great-grandparents never went to school. My grandparents went to 3rd grade. My parents graduated high school. I graduated college. So did my brother. My kids graduate college, and then what are they going to do? They're going to go back again and again. They're going to learn from watching TED Talks. They're going to learn from reading on their iPads, but they're going to learn their whole life. And those are people, and we also have places. Places have changed because the locational factors of wealth have changed. You had a reason to be on a farm. The reason was the soil would grow something. You know, you had the land. You had a reason to put a manufacturing plant in certain places because of the labor, because of whatever. Today, those locational factors are really different. Transportation locational factors are about airports. They're about where do the flights go. Education is about how good those colleges or community colleges are. Infrastructure is not about having a road. My great-grandparents, there was a dirt road. My grandparents, there was a road. Interstates came along, but they changed. And so places were different in what competed. Alexis, North Carolina, my guess is no one knows where that is, but it was a long way away. My grandparents moved to Stanley. It was the closest town close by. My parents moved to Gastonia, which was the biggest town in the county. I moved to the Raleigh metro area because it was even bigger, and urbanization changed our whole competition. What it is that drives the community's ability to be successful. Those are issues that keep changing on us, and that change paralyzes us. We keep trying to figure out what the future is. We get asked all the time. I work for a group called the Southern Growth Policy Board. We do all these reports. 30 years ago, we did a report called After the Factories, What Happens? It was a book, right? Books today, back then. We read it. But people want to know what the new normal is. They want to know what it is that's going to cause their place to be successful in the future. So I brought a visual aid today. This is what I tell people when they ask me what the new normal is. It's a crystal ball. It was a present from me about 20 years ago because people kept asking me to predict the future. So, is Hickory going to be a great community in the next 10 years?
Consult me later.
It said consult me later. It doesn't answer the way you want it to. You know, what's the new normal? There's never been a normal. I just described a lifetime, and is there anything normal about that lifetime? What we have is we have a world where we have an idea of where we're going. We're trying to get from here, and they told me not to walk off the thing. But, you're trying to get from here to there. And this looks pretty easy, right? You can just walk through it. Except in life, all this stuff happens in the middle on your trip. It's a little bit like movies, that have tornadoes or alien abductions. You sort of think you're going somewhere, and then it all just falls apart in the middle. And so why understanding change can help us with our places and our own success in the future, there's a William Ward quote that says that when you're worried about the changing winds, the pessimist worries about the wind and complains about them. The optimist expects them to change. And what does the realist do? They adjust the sails. They react. And so when you're dealing with communities trying to figure out what they want to do in the future, we try to look at it from the standpoint that there's reality and there's desire. There's no visuals for desire in here. I want you to, it's too early on Saturday morning. And I don't do slides for that one either. And I don't recommend all of you with your tablets Google it real quickly. So, how do you get a place from reality to desire if you're a community? And we've been working some with Hickory, as many of you know, on this in Catawba County. You have to look at moving from where you are to where you want to be through some lenses. One of those lenses is context. People are going to talk about that all day. One of the geekiest words for this decade, and one of the words that's the most important, Bruce used relevance, I'll use contextualization. How do you fit in the world? How does your place fit? So if you can understand how you fit, and you can understand what changes are happening, and that's a big one, trying to measure those changes. You can understand the competition that you're in the world with, then you can move from here to there. But you can't do so without, analyzing those things, without understanding what it is that's there. And that's where technology comes in. If you think about technology, my great-grandparents didn't even have electricity. So my grandparents, when they got electricity, and they got to trade the mule in for a tractor, life was good. And if you've ever had a mule, ever been around a mule, that was a really big deal. My mother would say that the greatest invention in her life, and my mother's still alive, and we took a picture of me up here because I'm going to send it to my mother in just a minute from the stage because technology is cool, isn't it? My mother says that when she was in the 11th grade, they got an indoor toilet. And oh my, did that change the world. Now, think about that. She's still alive, and she remembers the world pre-indoor toilets in North Carolina. She also remembers air conditioning in the South, first television. Technology's come a long way to moving us and helping to redefine places. If you didn't have air conditioning, was a reason the South didn't grow so fast, pre-air conditioning. Haven't met anybody from Vermont who still likes it, but before air conditioning, we're done. Well, in my lifetime, I remember when we got cable TV. MTV rocked, you know, it was great back then. And I do remember Pong, and it was cool, but only so cool. I was telling someone before that I had the first personal computer that the city of Baltimore, who I worked for, ever had in 1982. It was an Osborne. It was the size of this thing. It had 2 little floppy disks, and when you stuck them in, it would run one computational program that basically added up rows of numbers. But you could carry it with you, and we were cool. Somebody said, could you email it to someone? I said, there wasn't any email, not in the early 80s. And then you think about my kids, you know, and they've got these little things. And they don't know why anybody wouldn't have ever had it. Why didn't you just Google it, Dad? So when communities are talking about using tools to help them with their economics, I want you to think, I'll give you an example. When I was early in my career, I've been doing this for about 33 years. I'm an economist, work in City, Baltimore. We used to have to figure out the unemployment rate. Okay. Most of you probably even know sort of what the unemployment rate is because we announce it on the radio now. But back in the early 80s, you would go down to the library after they published the book and look up the unemployment rate. And I'm not going to do it on stage, but I tried it in the back here. If I ask Siri, she'll tell me what the unemployment rate is in history. It used to be you had to hire a team of consultants to spend years studying your economy. And now you can contextualize your own place, and you can use social media to bring your leadership together, and you can share ideas and survey each other, and you can figure out what it is that's your context, what it is the changes that are happening in your community are. And then you get to that third C, that's the hard part for communities. The hard part for communities when they're trying to figure out how to move forward is they don't understand that there's no answer. There are just choices. Everybody wants, you know, tell me what I should do to create more jobs. Tell me what I should do to have a better whatever. Public policy is never about finding the answer. It's about defining the choice. The great news is that technology has allowed us to define those choices. And that's true when we talk about places, it's true about people. Think about how many choices you have today on what to do this evening. Some of you are deciding what to do with these right now in your lap. But think about this. Technology has allowed us to have multiple choices. And I think finding that relevance so that you're not overwhelmed with it is really the key for how we move forward. It's how do you manage that information as you get there. I like to refer to it as the data Kool-Aid haze. You know, you just sort of get so much stuff you give up. Communities are like that too. They don't know what choices to make because they haven't been able to process the information. And so, when you come to a place like TED and you're sitting around listening to new ideas, how do you deal with them as you go home? I think that's a real issue. I mean, what do you do? You know, what is the guy in the back of the room going to tell you to do with the information? Well, the guy, you don't have to tell them. You need to figure that out for yourself. You need to do that through contextualization. So change has paralyzed us. We got hit in the mouth. And as we get paralyzed, we don't know how to act. We don't know what to do next. How many people in the room like change? Raise your hand. It's just for those people. About 1/10 of you raised your hand. How many of you believe that change is happening to you? Everybody, right? Embrace it, right? What are you going to do? You can't run from it. How do you contextualize that change to match your life is the key to being successful both personally, but as a place. And as a community, how you each contextualize that change, use the tools that you're given to move forward is how you help a community. It doesn't happen externally. Nobody else is out there trying to figure it out for you. You're empowered to do it. You have to use technology to do it. We're all afraid of technology. We all know that. We all know that you're either an early adapter and you have every toy in the world, but even if you have every toy, you're scared that you're going to screw it up or not have the best new toy. So how do you do that is the key. is how do you find a way to contextualize that information? My mother hates change too. She does. She complains about it all the time. And if you have 78-year-old mothers, you know what I'm talking about. But she likes her DVR, and she likes her GPS, and she likes talking on her cell phone to her grandchildren. And she's going to absolutely love it when I send her the picture that was just sent to me on Facebook. Use it. Embrace the change. One of my favorite, like most people my age, Jimmy Buffett's one of my guys. You know, we love Jimmy Buffett, right? Jimmy Buffett has a line in one of his songs that says that, you know, I'm living on things that excite me, be they pastry or lobster or love. Well, TEDx excites me, but so does change, because I just embraced it and figure out how to use it. Thank you.